So, for today's talk, I want to kind of go out into the weeds, as our old Mr. Sturdy used to say. Mr. Peter Sturdy, and we called him Sturdy Peter, who dated one of my buddy's mom. Well, actually, I think they even maybe got married at some point. I'm not sure, but they don't. Whatever. But what he used to say was, "I'll smoke you out of the weeds," and then he'd follow that by go down to the, get some sort of slip, or you're late, or I don't know. He always found some kind of excuse to kick certain kids out of his class, me being one of them. And that could be kind of the story of my whole educational experience. But before I get into that, I want to talk about dreams, because I've had a couple of dreams in my life that were truly, they felt important, like outer worldly almost. And I'll start with the first kind of recurring dream I ever had as a little boy. I used to dream that, I was running naked through the pyramids, but they were just being built. And, so I'm running around like, this is great, I'm, I don't know, maybe 3 years old at the time. Maybe even younger, 3, 4, 2.5, I don't know. Anyway, I'm running around naked. And then it kind of strikes me that, it's foggy, but it felt like there was some sort of, scaffolding there, but it didn't really seem primitive. It seemed almost, it seemed like just something different. TBH. Something I didn't recognize. And that's actually, now that I think about it, that's when I kind of thought to myself, wait a minute. I'm like this 3-year-old kid. And I'm like, where's my mommy? And I realized I'm completely alone, right? And then I started to have like a panic attack. Like, I was a 3-year-old boy. And, when you're a 3-year-old boy, your mommy is your universe, right? So it's like, well, I knew where I could find her, or at least I thought I did. And so I ran into this room that seemed like a lab, like a medical lab. But all the nurses were naked. Now, I was 3 years old. I mean, come on. But what's funny about that is I recognized my mom's bum, right? I was like, oh, that's my mom's bum. I don't need to talk to any of these other naked ladies. You can save that for later. But anyway, so I walk up to who I think was my mom, and I was like, Mom. And I turned around, and she had she didn't have a face. It was like almost insectoid, but not really. Like it was, again, something I'd never seen before, alien. And then I woke up, like I was like, oh my God, my mom's an alien, right? Which I always thought was a weird dream for a 3-year-old kid. And probably why I still remember it so vividly. Now there was another time that I had a really profound dream. And because again, this is something that's never happened in my dreams. Now, to be honest, I don't dream so much now, because of some of the medications I take. But when I used to dream a lot, I still do. Just I don't remember them as much. But I used to remember my dreams vividly, and I actually, I could fly and stuff. Like I really was getting, I had a very vivid dreamer. But I was also conscious of my dreams. Like I had a dream once where I was talking to my deceased father, and I kind of asked him a question to see if how he'd answer, and I won't say, but that's when I realized, this is a dream. This is all just bullshit, But anyway, I had another dream that didn't feel like bullshit at all. So I dreamt that I felt like I was hiking through like the woods at KP or Port Franks or, around here. And I was walking with a bunch of natives that, were dressed like old school natives, right? Skins and stuff. But I also didn't feel like this was, I didn't feel like we had low technology or whatever. Like I knew, the people I was with, we all lived very well. Like we were, like I felt like I was some type of royalty or just highly regarded with my soul tribe, right? And actually that's the thing, like not all of them natives. Like I remember Forbesy was one of the guys in my soul tribe because I remember hearing him laugh. Because someone said a joke or whatever. And okay, so anyway, so I'm walking through the woods with a bunch of my native friends and, my white friends, just my friends and my tribe. And I look up into the night sky. It's at night. I think like it kind of felt like we were just about done for the day. We were going to set up camp or whatever and hunker down, have some sort of delicious meal or whatever. Like again, I felt like what we were doing was having fun. But there was a bunch of us. I would say it felt like there was about 200 people, maybe more. Quite a large group of mostly natives, but a few white people. And I turned to my wife, who I couldn't identify. Like, you get that in dreams, like you don't know who exactly that is. But then this is the really crazy part. Then I said, blah, 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 blah. I said something that sounded Ojibwe, except I don't speak Ojibwe. And I'd love to actually talk to one of my Ojibwe friends and, see if they can translate that. But what I thought I said in Ojibwe was, hey, babe, look at the moon. Like, what's going on with that? And I got her attention to look up at the moon, but it wasn't the moon at all. It was like, and this is also where I thought it's the blue kachina. Although, I don't know what the blue kachina is, but I've definitely heard that term before. But what it appeared to be was a planet-sized object that was on a direct line for us. Like we were going to be ground zero. And it, like a very, very close passing of this huge object. And so again, this was a nightmare, right? Like, and at that moment, so yeah, like I saw this big planet-sized thing that had a blue hue around it. Like it was the blue hue that was given off a comet, actually. But at this point, because I guess it would have been facing directly at us, the tail was still actually, that makes total sense now, because I just learned that the other day with from watching Carl him and Graham Hancock are buddies, and they're both awesome. But anyway, So I turn around to my wife, who I really don't know who that is, but I knew she was a smoke show. Like, I knew that. Like, I was definitely in love with this woman. And I was like, hey, babe, what do you think that is? Like, it looks like there's a blue hue around the moon. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's not where the moon is. And I was like, oh my God, we are all gonna die. And I woke up. Well, no, actually I didn't wake up quite then. I felt that. I felt that total, grief, right? Like, oh, like that sinking in your stomach. But then I thought, I felt, don't worry about it, Divine. Like, yeah, you died then, but you're back again, But that's what I mean. I felt like I kind of died that day, or at least in and around that day. Cause I think, Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, that's who it is, Randall Carlson, talk about impacts in a cyclical manner. Randall did a really kind of neat talk on sacred geometry, so that the cross and the cataclysmic events throughout time, and they're usually at like one hand at the cross, and they're usually at actually the south or the north. It seemed like there was really a lot at this point, at the bottom point. But yeah, so I died, but I felt like it was fine. Like it was going to be okay. And there was another dream that I had that was like that, which was actually really sort of random, which obviously dreams are. But I was on the bus, and I looked over and I saw what looked to be Jesus. And I was like, oh my God, Jesus is on the bus. I'm going to have to go talk to him. So I get up, and I kind of like, it's almost like I got sort of woozy or whatever. And he stood up in front of me and he said, are you prepared to meet our Father? And I said, if you say so, Lord. And then at that moment, I just like fell. But he held me up. And when he held me up, I had that same feeling of universal love that some people talk about in a near-death experience, because that's what it almost kind of felt like. Although, again, this dream was really sort of random. But I don't know. I just that's something I've been thinking about, and since I don't have that many of my old friends to talk to anymore, I thought I'd talk to the internet about it. So, thanks for listening.